there is help and support out there. You can ask for that help and support. It doesn't make you any weaker. It doesn't make you any less of a tradesperson. It doesn't make you any less of a human being.
People associate mental health as being negative, and it's not the case. Like, mental health can be giving your mate a high five.
Physical health and your mental health go hand in hand. And everybody's fine about talking about the physical health, but they often struggle with the mental health side of things. And your body will tell you when your mental health's dropping.
Welcome, guys, to the Fischer podcast. I'm here with Joe and Rob. If you guys could introduce yourself, can you give me a bit of your background, and then we can go from there.
So I'm Rob Muldoon. I'm from the MYH podcast, and I've worked in the construction industry now for 24 years. Started off as an apprentice bricklayer, worked in big commercial builds over the years, and then a few years ago I went through a mental health journey, got myself better, got a bit of help and support, and when I came back to work I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. My biggest problem was I wasn't talking about what I was going through and what was happening in my life. So I thought, why don't I start a podcast about mental health in construction? Because construction, we love to talk about football and other stuff, but we don't like to talk about what's going on in our lives, and that's what I did. And it's now 4 and a bit years later, and it's been a journey to get to this point. I've loved every minute of it.
So what led you to the podcast?
So I started off as an apprentice bricklayer, worked for a big brickwork contractor in Manchester, working on big commercial stuff like schools and prisons and loads of MOD projects, all the big high-rise stuff you see in the middle of city centres and things. And over the years, I worked my way up to be a project manager for them, running the big projects I used to be part of. And I just turned myself inside out for work. And it was nothing to do with the company I was working for. They were great. They helped me. They supported me all the way when I finally opened my mouth and spoke about it. But because the stigma that surrounds this subject within our industry, I felt like I couldn't talk about this stuff. And if I do talk about it, it means I can't do my job and I'm not good enough. And if I do tell somebody that I'm struggling, they're going to think I can't do my job, and then they're going to get rid of me. And then all those thought processes of, well, do you know what? It's easy just to keep my mouth shut and get on with it and grin and bear it and get up, go to work, earn my money, pay my bills and go again. And I was miserable. And then I was working on a project in Liverpool. I was due to go away for a long weekend, tons of holiday because I never took it because I thought I had to be there, I had to turn up to work, I had to keep going. Doesn't matter how bad I felt, doesn't matter how bad the weather was, didn't matter how much stress and strain I was under, I was always all right. I had to keep going. But I should have been off on the Friday, but I didn't. I went into work, left work, met up with the family later on. They'd already been there a day. And we were out on the Saturday, and Seb, my eldest lad, just wouldn't eat his lunch. And I couldn't handle it. Oh. And I exploded. Just had this huge meltdown. I was horrible to everybody. And then after I finished making an idiot of myself in a restaurant, I went back to where we were staying. I hid in the bedroom for the rest of that weekend. My mind had broken at that point. But Monday morning, 4:30, my alarm goes off. I get myself up, drag myself out of bed. Anybody want to guess where I went?
Work.
I went to work. And turned up to work 6 o'clock in the morning. I had 2 Arctic loads of blocks sat outside this city centre job in Liverpool. And I had a forklift driver come in to help me sort this delivery out. I hadn't asked him to do that, but he could see I was struggling. All the lads could see I was struggling, but we never spoke about it. And whenever anybody asked me about it, yeah, I'm all right. We got this delivery sorted, sat having a cup of tea afterwards, and they were like, how was your weekend away, Rob? It's all right, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, no.
And that Monday morning was like the hardest Monday morning of my life. I obviously got that delivery sorted, and I got everything else done that I needed to do that morning, all my reports and everything else. And once I knew the lads were safe and they were earning money, nobody needed him from me, I went out into the car park, and I had a pickup at the time. I dropped the tailgate on that pickup, and I crawled in the tub of the pickup, and I just broke down. Oh. I couldn't keep going. Now, I had a really, really good relationship with Paul, my boss. He was wicked. Loved working for him. And that morning I kept ringing him and hanging up and ringing him and hanging up because I knew I needed to ask for help, and I knew I needed to speak about it, but I didn't know how. Because I felt stupid, I felt embarrassed, I felt ashamed. I felt like I'd let him down, I felt like I'd let myself down. And I thought that if I ask for this help, I'm going to lose my job, which it absolutely wasn't like that. Because I thought if I lose my job, it means how do I provide for the family and how do I keep the roof over their heads and how do I keep the kids in school shoes and everything along those lines. And when I finally got to the car park, I was ringing him and he actually answered it this time because I was like throughout the morning I was just ringing and going, no, I can't, and I'd hang up. But when I got to the car park, he actually answered it and he's like, Rob, what do you want? And he said it a bit different to that.
Yeah.
I was like, Paul, I need you. He's like, right, what do you need? I was like, something's gone on. It's like, can you come and see us? So he did. He drove over. It took a bit of persuading because he's a busy man. He's running a big company. And we were speaking to us and he's like, what's up? And I just told him everything. Like, Paul, I've messed it up. This has happened and that's happened and I've let you down, I've let the lads down and everything that gone on at home and what had happened over the weekend and how I got to this point, and I just let everything go at that point. And he turned around to me and his very first words to me were, forget work. Who needs work? Let me get you some help. And that's exactly what he did for me. So I had a bit of time off, did a bit of talking therapies, spoke about this stuff. And then,
if you don't mind me asking, how did it feel, like finally talking about it?
Scary.
Yeah.
Massively scary because I felt like...
Did it feel like a weight came off your shoulders?
Not at first. No, because at first it felt like, it was, I guess, sort of dread, like, what is this going to entail?
Mm-hmm.
Where does this lead me now? Does this mean I am going to lose my job? I know, like, work are being good with me, but ultimately, is this going to affect my future? And then all the worry about the bills and everything like that. And then when I did start realising and understanding that, you know what, this is a good thing, and it does, I did start to see the benefit and I did start to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it started to, like, the weight started to lift. So it wasn't like an instantaneous thing where the weight was lifted straight away, or certainly not for me anyway. It took a bit to get used to it. And then when I did get used to it and everything was continuing and I did go back to work and I did continue to do my job and I was paying the bills, but I was doing it in a better way and I was in a better place. It made a big difference to me, and that's when it was like, you know what, I'm so glad I did that.
And then was that like the point where you were like, right, I can now help others?
Yeah, I went back to work and I carried on, and I did have another meeting with Paul. I'd gone back to the office to pick something up and he was coming out of the office because we worked, it was such a big company that you might not see people for ages. Like, there might be lads that I work with, they go off on a different site and I might not see them for 3 years. Not that they've left the business, we're just not on the same site. And I'd gone back to the yard to pick some scaffolding fixings up, and Paul was coming out of the office. He was going off somewhere to do a meeting. And he said to me, right, Rob, what do you want to do? Do you want to carry on with your job? Do you want to drop back on the tools? Do you want to drive one of the machines for us? What do you want to do? You can do anything you want. And at this point, I was doing my MVQ level 6. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, Paul, I hate my job. I said, I'm either arguing with you, arguing with the site teams, or arguing with the lads on site. And it's a merry-go-round of poo that I don't want to be on. And he was like, well, I tell you what, when you finish your MVQ, go off, do your NEBOSH and become a health and safety manager for us. And I stood there and I thought about it for a minute and I was like, all right, if you want me to. And he let me have it. He's like, it's not if I want it, it's what you want to do. I'm bending over backwards to try and help you. You're still not helping yourself. And again, he wasn't as nice as that. And
a nice guy there to put it in that.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think that's the terminology you need to speak about it. But I was like, well, can I do a bit more on the mental health side of things? I said, because the lads are coming to me anyway and chatting to me about what's going on in their lives, and I didn't realise I was giving them the support that I needed or that I should have done for myself. I said, the lads resonate to me anyway, and we do that. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Let's look for a role with you within our business to do that. And that was like I say, 4 or 5 years ago. I did a talk on Manchester Town Hall, where the work was they had a project on there, it's still ongoing that. And Paul was in the audience and he said to me, after I finished, he was like, you ain't going to be working for me in 18 months, are you? And I was like, I don't know. And within like 6 months I'd gone. Not that we'd fallen out in any way, but he could see my career was going down a different path. And I'm very, very, very proud of everything that I've achieved, leaving school with no qualifications, so to speak of, and getting an apprenticeship, and ended up working on some amazing projects over the years. And yes, I didn't look after myself properly, but I can be very proud of everything I've achieved, but nothing gives me job satisfaction like the work that I do today. Going out and helping, supporting people, and supporting this industry, and helping people get that help and support that they need, and realise they're okay to ask for it. They're not alone, and they're not the only ones going through it.
So why did you create the podcast?
The podcast purely came about because it was chucking it down one day. Again, I was working in Liverpool. I've worked a lot in Liverpool. And all the lads had gone because they couldn't lay bricks. It was chucking it down. So I was catching up with a bit of paperwork. And I was sat there just doing my weekly returns. And I thought, this has got to change. There's got to be a different way of doing this. There's got to be a better way of doing it. Like, you see posters everywhere on site. And posters absolutely need to be there. They do play a part in raising awareness. But especially at like my lowest point, I could have been working on a site where there might have been 300, 400, 500 people in that canteen at any one time. And I'm stood there looking at a poster to do with mental health and getting support. And I thought there might have been 400 or 500 pairs of eyes looking at me, looking at that poster. And they might be sat there thinking, what's Rob looking at that poster about mental health? He's the one who's meant to be looking after me. He's meant to be making sure I'm safe every day out on site. He's meant to be the one that's sure I can earn enough money to pay my mortgage and everything like that. And he can't even look after himself. So I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. And my biggest problem was, like I said before, I wasn't talking, wasn't opening this, how I was feeling. I didn't know how to articulate how I was feeling and what was going on. I used to turn all those feelings into anger, because anger was an emotion I could understand. And so if I had a feeling inside me that I didn't understand, I'd turn it into anger. And I thought, well, if I start a podcast, because that's all about talking, and then people can come on and realise that they're not alone, they're not the only one having these thoughts and feelings, and they could be sat in that canteen with 300, 400, 500 people in that canteen, and nobody else in that room knows what they're listening to in their earphones, and they're listening to somebody else who they could have worked with, or who does a similar job to them, or may not be the same trade as them, but they work within the industry, and they've been through a journey and they've come out the other side, and it gives them hope more than anything, and it gives people hope to realise that it does get better.
I suppose it's then they'll question if they're looking at a poster, whereas in their own time that they can just, put an earbud in and listen to the podcast. Yeah,
reference back to it anytime they want. And somebody might, I get people messaging me saying, you said this at 27 minutes and 33 seconds. I'm like, did I? I don't know, but it'll really, really resonate with them. And they can go back, and people say to me, I use it when I need a pickup or I need to realise that I'm doing okay. I'll go back and listen to certain episodes.
Well, I think it's like raising awareness, isn't it? Without other people being aware, if you don't want other people knowing, you can sit there with your headphones in and listen to that. And you're not staring at a poster, all of a sudden people aren't understanding necessarily.
Yeah, it's like when I went back and did my job again, I carried on being a project manager because I needed to pay the bills still. And I went off and did, again, through the Lighthouse, they did a scheme called Building Mental Health, and Paul applied for me to do a load of training through that, which all got funded. It was a grant through the CITB. And I did my mental health first aid course. But when I finished it and I went back to work and I went back on site, I never wore a lanyard with mental health first aid on. I never had a sticker on my helmet. I never had anything on my PPE, because as much as they need to be there, they can be a barrier for people to come up to talk to me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if I'm stood there just in my normal PPE that I used to wear, and I've got my iPad or whatever, or a drawing in my hand, people could come over to me and chat to me, and people around them could all think, well, he's just chatting to me about a drawing. They don't know that, but when really I could be helping them, supporting them. And because people got to know what I did and what it was all about, and especially the early days of the podcast when I was still on site and things like that, other contractors had come up to me, like other lads that are working on site, and they come up to me and start chatting to me, and I'd end up helping and supporting a lot of people that not necessarily work for the contractor that I work for, but other subcontractors on site. And then I did get the odd lad who I work with, and they come up to me and go, I've got this mate. And this is happening. And then I catch up with him in a couple of weeks and go, how's your mate doing? And they're like, oh, they're all right.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But it's just grown arms and legs now, and I'm no longer working on site like that, so to speak, even though I am on site a lot, but I'm out delivering talks now and encouraging people to reach out and ask for that help and support.
Amazing. Sorry, Joe.
That's
Thought you were
okay.
there.
Don't worry. Most people do, to be honest.
Can you obviously give a bit about your background and obviously your channel, etc.?
Yeah, so I am Joe, aka Screed Pappy, as people like to call me now on my socials. And I've only been in construction for 3 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, so before I was in construction, I was in the food industry. And very similar to you, I struggled with my mental health. I was deep into addiction. So I was really struggling with alcohol. And I guess my mental health kind of didn't understand that at the time. And I just made a change, basically. I was in sales, so I was sort of started off as a chef and worked my way up. I ran my own business for sort of like 6 years, and then wanted to get a mortgage, obviously self-employed, didn't want to touch me with a barge pole. So we got a mortgage. And then obviously with that then comes a lot of stress and pressure, as everybody knows. To change my job role into a sales team, part of a sales team for a small independent food service company. And then after working for them for 6 years, I got headhunted to go and work for a big multinational company. I went to go and work for them for 2 years, but obviously then the dreaded COVID came along. And really altered the logistics of how things were working. Really, I was working a lot from home. There was a lot of people on furlough, so the workload, whilst it decreased because of the numbers that we were supplying, the workload increased because the team on the ground were a lot fewer, really. So, and like everybody, I think in COVID, we all took it as a bit of a holiday and let's crack a beer at 10 o'clock in the morning and, treat it like that. And that's, I got into a very slippery slope. I think at my darkest time, I was doing about a bottle of spice rum a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
But didn't have a problem, obviously. Yeah. I was fine. I'm not an addict. I've got, I can control it. And then, basically attempted suicide. I would say, when I say attempted suicide, I went to the side of the motorway near where I live and sort of sat on the fence pondering what's going to happen if I do this? Is everyone's life going to be better or is it going to be worse, and all that kind of stuff. And fortunately for me and others around me, that I managed to pull myself back with a good support network, and obviously the thoughts that I were having in my mind at the time. And then, just decided to make a change, really. I went down to Boardmasters in, it would have been August, 3 years ago, and met the most incredible human being I've ever met in my life. You might know him, actually, Ian from We Are Hummingbird. Mm-hmm. So he's a mental health first aid trainer, and he delivers courses to all sorts of walks of life, really. Does a bit with the Royal Navy, Portsmouth football team, I believe. So he's down in Portsmouth himself. And I just went to go and volunteer, basically, to try and help out others whilst I was still struggling myself and I was still in addiction. And he was just like a guardian angel, is the best way I can explain him, basically. And he changed my life with what he was saying to me. And just pulled me back, and I haven't touched a drop of alcohol since, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
You just
3
stopped?
years. Literally, from what he was talking to me about, I just my life needs to change. I was selfish, I was angry, very much like you. That's the best way I could express how I was feeling. And now I look back and think it was a very selfish way of dealing with what I was going through, really. But I don't know about you, but you don't tend to think about other people when you're in that mindset, if that makes sense, until you start taking a step back, and then you realise that actually the other people that are around you supporting you are the people that are trying to help and make you understand what's going on, really. So but he pulled me back, and like I say, completely clean now, and my life has just turned tenfold. So it's really, really good for me now. And I love construction, I love what I do. So it's happy days.
So is that when you decided to create your social channel?
Yeah, kind of. So I never really had a goal per se of becoming a content creator or influencer, and I do kind of hate those words, really. It's very cliche, isn't it? Let's be honest, an influencer. I find it very cringe, as most people do. I like creating content, and I like people to engage with what I'm doing, really. There's not many people that create content in in the part of the industry that I'm in. And whilst I try and create content with my work, I'm also trying to raise awareness of mental health at the same time. So I do like to keep my page as my page and keep it professional. But I do believe that, like you, I think unless people understand that in this industry, the statistics are scary when you really start looking into it and understanding it. So if I can raise awareness and 3 people in a week can come to me and say, oh, do you know what, I've never really thought about talking about that, or, I'm a million miles away from you in regards to what you're doing. But, the way I look at it is if I can make one person smile a day, then I'm happy. And that's,
You're not a million miles away. You're doing it your way.
Yeah. And, my reach is different. It's not, I suppose it's not my job to do that. But I think if I'd have had somebody, I guess, like me, whilst I was going through my struggles that I could relate to, then, potentially it could have saved me that little bit earlier than when I was saved. But I am a massive believer in everything happens for a reason, and what's meant to be won't pass you by. So that was my time and my little journey, really.
Yeah, massively. I believe everything happens for a reason.
Well, I mean, with both of like your stories, obviously you were just saying about that you're doing it your way and you're doing it yours. With what area, like specifically, do you aim with mental health? Is it sort of like, obviously I know the goal is the same, but what ways do you do it?
I think the way I do it, I can be quite firm with people.
Yeah.
Because when I was doing a lot of my training, I was in a room and I was the only man in there, and 2, I was the only construction worker that was in there, and everybody's like, "Oh, let's sort this out," and I'm like, that ain't gonna work on site. That. So say like when I'm on site doing one of the talks, in fact, I was in a head office for a massive house builder 2 weeks ago, not far from here. And I said to him, look, this ain't going to be a corporate talk. There's going to be swearing in it, and there's going to be real life events and everything like that. And is everybody all right? And they're all like, yeah. And then when I started talking,
scare them.
yeah. And then they didn't like, I didn't realise it's like that. And it's just real life. It's
relatable, I think, isn't it?
Relatable. It's real life. Yes, you do need to look after yourself, and yes, you do need to have that grit and determination to work in this industry. There is no doubt about it. You've got to have resilience. And I think that's a big thing that I try and teach people is resilience, because I've had people, whether it's doing the work that I'm doing now or whether I'm out on site doing the talks and things, people have said to me, oh, you're turning everyone into a snowflake. I'm like, I'm absolutely not. I'm trying to teach people to understand that there is help and support out there. You can ask for that help and support. It doesn't make you any weaker. It doesn't make you any less of a tradesperson. It doesn't make you any less of a human being. You're not a robot, and you all need help and support. And I'll try and make it a bit relevant to them with whatever trade they do. And if I'm honest with you, I like it when I get the crowds that are like that, because I'll give it them back just as much as they do it. And I can give you tons and tons of examples where I've had to go in on people. But I do it in a way which is the language that we speak out on site. I think more than anything, I just try and make it as relatable, as real life as possible, and let them know that you can do it.
With a lot of effing and blinding.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's important, though, because I think from your point of view, you're trying to get a message across to a certain audience. Yeah. Let's face it, most people that are in construction aren't classroom people, are they? We don't want to sit down and listen to a theory lesson on how to look after your mental health. I think you need to be relatable, and I think that's what you're doing. I think that's massively important to get your message across.
And it's done or I hope it's done in a way that people can see that, and they can reach out and ask for that help and support. And they may never let me know or anybody know that it's come through something I've done or something you've done or anybody's done, as long as it impacts them. And me and Joe could stand and deliver the same talk, for instance, but you could say it your way and I could say it my way. Yeah. Like, there's not one way to make this message land with people. You had coffee this morning, I've had tea this morning. Everybody's different. Everybody has different wants and needs. And that's why it's got to be done in so many different ways.
And then how do you feel with your platform? Like, how do you deliver?
Mine's kind of, obviously, because it's not my main push on my platform, I think for me, it's more, again, it's real life. It's obviously showing people what we do on a day-to-day basis. I'm more, I guess, showing people it's okay not to be okay kind of thing. That, you know, everybody says to me, oh, you know what, your stories of a morning, we wake up and it's so positive and it gives us a really good kickstart to the day. But I'm also real, and I say, like, do you know what, this has gone wrong today and this had this effect on me, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I think my platform's it's more of what I do on a daily basis, but also, like, obviously with Men's Mental Health Month this month, I'm trying to drip feed in, you know, the odd reel here and there of, like, you know, support networks or, you know, things, motivational speeches or that kind of thing, really. So I guess it's just, like you said, it's different. We target it differently, and it's because it's not my main driving factor. I guess it's a little bit more subtle on my page than it would be on someone who's, you know.
And I think I try and do, like, I'll get people messaging me saying, oh, can you speak to this individual? He's in our group chat, or they're in our group chat, and they're being a bit distant and they're not the same. And I'll never message him going, oh, everybody from the group chat said you're being really distant and everything like that. I did one a couple of weeks ago, and I just started talking about something that they'd put in the reel, and I grew it. And then I never mentioned mental health once to them, but they ended up talking to me about how they felt a certain way at that time, and how I'd drawn it out of them, and how it was affecting them. And then spoke about them with them about another 2 or 3 messages, checked in on them a couple of times, and now they're like, and I've noticed a difference in the way that they are with the social media stuff. They're posting more stuff, and they're back to being energetic. And as well, I think the important thing is people need to remember that when you go through a mental health journey, it's not like linear. This is how it's going to be. This is, you're going to sort all this. You're going to get this support, and everything's going to be okay. It's not like when you break your leg. You break your leg, you have it in plaster for 8 weeks, have a bit of physio afterwards. And although that leg might be sore in the wintertime when it gets cold and stuff, you're pretty much back to where you were. With mental health, it's an ongoing journey. I still get it now. There's been times where I'll wake up and I'm riddled with anxiety, and I don't understand why. And I could wake up and I'm just in a bad mood, or I could be driving the van or doing a job and I'll just burst into tears. And I'm like, why am I feeling like this? I don't understand it. What I tend to do when I feel like that is I'll de-engineer it a bit. Right, I'm feeling rubbish today. When was the last time I felt good, and what's changed between now and then? It might be something as simple as the weather changing, clocks going back, Christmas is coming up, tax bills are coming in, something's happened, somebody said something to you, and you didn't quite sit with you right, and you've not, and you're holding it inside you. All the different things that go on in life. But it's important to realise you recognise those things, and then find out what your coping strategies are, whether that be boxing, whether it be running, whether it be art, whether it be talking groups, whether it be whatever you need to do as an individual that works for you. Recognising that and leaning into those support networks that you built for yourself. And not always as well, those support networks will work for you. You could get to a certain point with it and think, right, well, this was working for me, but now it's not. What do we need to change about it? And you might need to change it up quite often. It's not one way of doing it. It is the perfect way of doing it. There's loads of different ways of doing it.
Well, just going back a little bit, where you were saying that, you know, obviously you both have gone through a mental journey, and it's, you know, continuing. You both have, like, constantly in the public eye, say, and you were saying that it's great that you have a responsive, where, you know, you've got, like, good energy, you do a story, and then that takes someone out of their bed and they're also in a good mood. How is that pressure for both of you? Like, how do you handle your own mental health, like, where you've got so much pressure from sometimes your followers?
I think it's a difficult question, that, to be honest with you. But I think from my point of view, again, like I said, I'm just real. And I think just sort of touching on what you were saying there about, you know, you can have a day where you feel riddled with anxiety, or, you know, not necessarily the best. You don't feel the best. I have this little thing that Ian from Bird taught me about the mental health bank balance. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this before, where you cash in and cash out throughout the day. So if something good happens, so for instance this morning, and it makes me smile just thinking about it, I've got a little 7-year-old boy who was fast asleep in my bed, rolled over, put his arm around me, put his leg around me, and gave me a little cutch, little spoon. And it just brings me joy. So for me, the first instance of that day, the first thing that I'm waking up to is giving me joy. That's a cash in for me. It might be then that I get to a job and something goes wrong on the job and that's a cash out. But I think as long as you end your day on a positive mental health bank balance, for me, that's what I do every day now. You know, like you said about de-engineering it and dealing with it your way. And again, we go back to everybody has their way of dealing with things. But for me, I don't feel pressure from trying to perform as such on social media. I like to keep it real. And yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it for me, really. I don't, you know, obviously there's going to be people that have positive things to say and negative things to say, but that's the journey of mental health. I think a lot of the time people get caught up in mental health. And I've just literally commented on someone's Facebook post that I follow who's an avid supporter of mental health. People associate mental health as being negative.
Yes.
And it's not the case. Like, mental health can be giving your mate a high five. It can be smiling and laughing. That's positive mental health. I think everybody nowadays, as soon as someone says mental health, it's automatically assumed that you're depressed, you've got anxiety. You know, it's the negative mental health or poor mental health. And it needs to be educated by you kind of guys that can really sort of stress that to people, that it can be both. Positive and poor, you know.
Absolutely. I think I can feel the pressure sometimes that people will look to me for the answers.
Yeah.
And I haven't got all the answers. Nobody's got all the answers. There's people that are far more intelligent than me, that have been doing it a lot longer than me, that are trying to understand and help and support not only this industry, but the human race with the suicide rates, that things that are out there. And people are still struggling to come up with the answers of what to do and how to cure it. And if I'm brutally honest, I don't think we ever will get to that point, but we can help drastically reduce those numbers. But I have to just say to myself, look, just keep being you. Just keep being you. You don't have to find the answers to people. And like, as well, if people are like messaging you, or if you might end up getting messages coming in because people are seeing what the good work that you're doing. Remember, you don't have to give everybody the answer. You don't have to give them the support. You don't have to give them solutions to what's going on in their life. As long as you can be there, be a non-judgmental listening ear for them, and just support them in the sense of saying, you know what, it sounds like you've got a lot going on there, and let me get you some help and support, and then signpost them to the people that can help and support them, and just do that way of doing it, and just realise that you can only do what you can do.
Do you with like sorry, I'm just trying to put it in the right way. Hang on. You must get like bad. It's not bad feedback, but you must get quite like critic. I don't know what the word is. Critiqued.
Yeah.
Like, you must. I mean, as you say, like with the. I'm sorry, I'm really trying to put it in a nice way here.
Just be blunt.
Yeah. You must get arseholes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously, I know you guys have gone through a lot, and you do try your best, but you're going to have an arsehole, aren't you? Like, how do you do? Yeah. How do you deal with that?
I can give you a great example.
Oh, really?
Go.
So, I was with Matt at D5. Went laying bricks with him for the day down in Birmingham.
Is he as good as he says he is?
Yeah, he's a good lad, Matt.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I'll tell you what, let's film a video of you laying bricks. I was like, all right, because I don't really put much bricklaying stuff on there. I'll be brutally honest with you, if I never laid a brick again in my life, I'd be pretty happy.
Oh, really?
I've done it for 20 odd years. I've had a belly full of it. But we were out on site one day, we were doing it, and we filmed this video, and I put it out, and he did quite well. Matt obviously knows what he's doing on that front, and it worked. And I had this guy in the comments saying to me, got along the lines of, oh, you're not a bricklayer, this, that and the other. And I was like, oh, sorry, my 22 years of experience is not good in. I was going back with dry sarcasm to them. Anyway, back and forth. And it got to about 15 minutes later. I'm like, right, I'm sick of you now, I'm bored of you. And he was going in on stuff. And then the next day, that was on Facebook. And then the next day he messaged me on Instagram and went, hi mate, it's me I gave you these comments. I've just seen what your page is all about. And I'm really sorry. I ended up getting him support.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he ended up going through a journey of getting support, and he messaged me back saying, I'm so appreciative of that, and I'm really grateful. And a lot of it, I think the point of that one is that is deflection. Because people don't know how to handle those situations. And we could say stuff and do stuff. And like whenever I give the talks at the beginning of my talks, I give a trigger warning. Say, look, I am going to talk about my journey. And your journey might not look like mine, but it may remind you of certain points. And if you need any help, like I do a thumbs up and a thumbs down thing. So sometimes you might need to step out for a minute. If you're all right and you just need a minute, give us a thumbs up. But if you want to step out and you don't want to make a scene, give us a thumbs down. Either myself or one of the other team members will come out and have a quick chat with you and make sure that you're all good. Because a lot of the time for these people, it's the first time they've ever heard or thought about this stuff. And they don't know how to handle it. And it could turn into anger because they can understand anger. And that could turn into dickhead comments. That could turn into stupid comments. And they don't know how to deal with it a lot of the time. And I'll always deal with it. I'll come back. I mean, you get a vibe off them, don't you? You get a vibe off them. And if I know, like I was giving an example about a guy who's just, for whatever reason, every time I put a video out, he's got 40 plus accounts, all faceless, all named. Well, they've got names on them. But
followed by 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. And they'll just dislike everything I do. And I'm like, keep going. Just keep going because that individual may come to me at some point and need that help and support. And there's been people that I've helped and supported over the years, and then they've ghosted me, so to speak, and I'm okay with that because I've done my bit. They've got that support, or they've gone off and started a journey. Whether they've continued that journey, I don't know, because I never know. But I know that I've done everything I can for that individual, and they're if they choose to take that help and support, then I've done my bit.
Well, it sounds like they may hate you for it, but you've done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you've gotten the support.
I'll stand and I'll take as much abuse off people that they want to give me, because there'll be people, especially when I'm doing face-to-face stuff, there'll be people in that audience that need to hear what's going on, need to hear what Joe says, need to hear what all other people are saying, because they might think that they're absolutely alone in this journey and they're the only one feeling like this, and they don't know what to do, how to handle it, how to understand it, how to ask for the help, what to do with that support, how to move forward in their life. And if somebody's there distracting and being abusive and being disruptive.
Do you find it a lot on your talks? That it's
getting less. It's getting less, but the severity of the heckling gets harder. And I'm used to dealing with big teams of bricklayers.
Yeah.
I've
Wore off a duck's back, I guess. Yeah.
I did. I mean, if we've got time, I can give you another example about a talk that I did in London. So I turned up to this site in London with the van that I've got, which obviously you've seen, so it's nice and bright.
I missed it, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'll show you. But turned up to this site, central London, and turned up, the hoarding was a mess. So straight away, I was like, what's going on here? All the monoflex around the scaffolding was flapping in the wind, and I was like, this site's a mess. And the site contact came out to me, and I said, am I all right parking here? Is this the right spot? Because I had to park in a certain position to do with the parking because of being on Fleet Street in London. And they're like, yeah, you've got the right place, but I'm really sorry about the team we've got on site. They're all scaffolders and ground workers. And I was like, right. And they're like, yeah, the rowdy. I was like, that's all right. And I got there. I walked in and the whole site was a mess. Like there was more dirt. And I know it's a building site, but you know when you go on a clean site and a well looked after site, this was not one. Walked in this canteen and it was like a rat run with all the mud on the floor where people have been walking. It's just building up, and I'm thinking people are meant to be sat eating their lunch in here and things like that, and they need a clean space away from the work area. And they got all these people in there and they were being really resistant, and I was handing these cards out. Like I always give cards out at the beginning of every talk, because not everybody, they get goodie bags off us, but not everybody wants to take those goodie bags. But as long as they've got the card with the contact details on and everything like that. And within the first 2 minutes, I had triggered everyone in that room, and they were going at me. And I mean, going at me.
What were they saying? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, I can tell it. So I speak about how I struggled with my kids and how I continue to struggle with kids, and fatherhood hasn't come easy to me, and how I speak about that. And they were like, you're not a fucking good dad. You're this, you're that, and everything like that. And you're shit at your job, and why the fuck have you let yourself get to this point, and all this sort of stuff. And I was stood looking at the site team who were running this project, And at the time, we had somebody who used to look after like the logistics for the tour. She had nothing to do with construction. She'd come from event organisation. Never worked.
Shock.
Yeah, and she sat there like this.
Welcome.
She was sat there like that and listening to all this abuse. And then when I turned and looked at the site team as if to say, "You're going to control them, I'm going to have to do it." And they were like, they didn't know what to do. They couldn't look at me. And I was like, right. And I just went in on them. I was like,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And I know it's not my podcast,
That's
but
all right.
I'd be really interested to find this out. When people are saying stuff like that to you, obviously you've then gone in on them or whatever and sort of like discussed how you feel. But for me, like past trauma for me, my dad was a complete waste of space. So that would have really triggered me. And I think I probably would have walked out. Obviously with how you've dealt with it, how do you, other than going in on them, do you not get a feeling there of like, oh mate, you know, like that doubt of...
Do you know what, right? When I used to run big projects, I used to massively struggle with imposter syndrome. It used to control my life. But with this stuff, I don't know, like I did bricklaying and the project manager side of stuff and it was a job. Whereas this, I feel like I was made to do this.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is difficult to deal with, and I've also got this stubborn mentality that you ain't beating me. And I went in on these lads and went, right, listen, you bunch of poo heads.
Poo heads.
I'm sure it was a little bit sharper than that.
I said shitheads. And I said, there's people in this room that need to hear this. If you don't like it, get the fuck out of this room, because there's people that need to hear this and will get support out of this and will get something out of this. If you don't want to listen to this and you want to sit here and disrupt me all the way through this talk, it ain't for you. Get the fuck out.
Did they leave?
No.
No way.
Interesting.
Nobody left.
Interesting.
Oh, well, there you go.
So it turns out one of their team had took their own life 3 weeks before.
Wow.
And I was like, right, boys, let's talk about it. And then there was still one that was being consistent and they were like asking me saying, can you do this in Chinese? And I was like, yeah. Because the charity, the Lighthouse, whatever your first language is, you can have it spoken to you.
Okay.
All the way through your journey. So the helpline is spoken in 13 different languages, but if there is a language that they don't do on the helpline, they can get it translated to you. And they were just asking me all sorts of daft questions. But by the end of it, they were stood out the front, having a picture with me with their arms around me on the van and saying, and two of them actually came up to me and went, I'm really, really sorry about that. It was, obviously that was gone on, but...
No respect, though.
Yeah,
That's
definitely. Yeah.
massive.
And I think what they wanted to do, Joe, is like you say, they thought they got told that there's going to be a talk about mental health and it's going to be somebody that is going to turn up with a tweed jacket on a leather thing.
100%.
And it ain't going to be realised that it's somebody from the industry that has worked in this industry.
Walk the walk, mate.
Dealt with people like you for however many years, and they came out the other side of it. And then, like, when we finished, the site team were like, can I have a word with you? I was like, yeah, all right. And they took me down like 2 corridors and through into these offices so nobody could hear what we were saying. They were like, oh, I'm really sorry about the site team. And I was going to start saying, well, you need to do this. And because the lads on that site were just dominating that team and they were getting walked all over. But I was like, it happens sometimes. It was dealt with. You've seen the result. And they've now know what the help and support that's out there. And it is difficult to deal with that stuff, and there is times where I can be really sensitive to stuff. But I also know that it comes down to resilience. Yeah, that resilience that I've built up over the years to put up with that. And I went away and I rang Lee, who's another member of the team, and I was like, "Oh my God, mate, I've just had to deal with this." And the adrenaline kicks in as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so but. You do get it, but again, there's always a reason. Like that individual in the comments, and then those people out on site. There's always a reason behind it, and it's deflection more than anything.
Yeah, because like I suppose in person, like you can probably sense it a lot more than if it was like through social media, like a comment.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that through the social channels that you both have?
To be honest, I don't get a lot. I think mainly because mine's a lot more work driven or more work content than it is mental health content. I don't really get a lot of negative comments. Like I did a video not so long back with the Home Improvements channel, And that was a different kettle of fish. That was people picking the bones out of everything you do. And that was kind of like, I've not had this before. This is a new experience for me. But to be fair, the lads, Brad and Phil had mentioned it to me to say, like, just be aware that, we think the video's on like 4.5 million views now and 12,000 likes or whatever. It's nothing to do with mental health. But they were saying, like, just be prepared for the barrage of abuse that you're potentially going to get. And then when you start seeing the way that they answer the barrage of abuse, just, smart, sarky, oh, I'm really sorry. And then, like, one of the comments was something like, can't believe that project's built out of shit. I can't believe you've done this, this and this. And I was like, built out of what, sorry? We're not in like the 1800s where we're making stuff out of wattle and daub or whatever. And the comment that I put back has got like 189 likes because the geezers obviously just tried to troll me.
Yeah.
But I don't, like I say, touch wood, I don't really get many negative comments on what I'm putting out there. And I'd like to think that, other than competitors that potentially don't want you to be doing well,
yeah,
I don't really think in the mental health game, if there is such a thing, there's many people that have got the brass neck to call you out and start slagging you off for doing something to try and better people's lives and offer support. And I don't personally think that's not, I haven't experienced that certainly. I don't know whether you have, but.
No, I mean, other than a couple of examples I've given, I don't really get anything like that. But what I do have to do, I have to have strong boundaries with social media and things like that to look after me because it is all-consuming sometimes. And I'll be honest with you, when I've been out all week doing talks and other bits of work that I do, come Friday, I'm absolutely mental health out.
Yeah.
And it's the last thing I want to think about. And I have to put my own mental health first. And I think it's important that people, when they do start doing work around mental health, they need to realise that they need to look after their mental health before anybody's, and they can say no to people.
Definitely agree with that.
Because if people are coming and looking for support for you and you're not at the top of your game, you can turn around to say, like Joe came to me and was like, Rob, I really need a bit of advice, but I was wiped out on Friday. I'd be like, Joe, dude, I'm really sorry. Can I
pick this up on Monday?
Yeah, can we pick it up on Monday? Or maybe speak to this person, or maybe go here. I'm absolutely wiped out. Because I do work with a lot of construction companies now where I'll go in and teach them how to speak to human beings, basically. And I'll say to them, like, how to push back in a positive way and to look after yourself. And you can say no to people. Or if you have somebody constantly messaging you and constantly leaning on you for support and you feel like it's overwhelming you can turn around to them and say, look, Joe, I've been supporting you for 6 weeks now and I feel we're still in the same place and we're not getting any further. Maybe I'm not the person to do this for you. Maybe let's look at finding somebody else to do this. Or ultimately you could turn around and say, right, Joe, it's not been working. What do you need from me to help you move forward in a positive way? And it's all these little things that I do for myself. And I don't, it'll get to 8, 9 o'clock at night and I'll stop reading messages on social media because I need the downtime.
Yeah.
Wish I could do that. I'm so bad.
Social media can be so draining.
It can be so draining, all consuming. It can take over your life. It can become a little bit obsessive as well. I think.
I have. Yeah. And I've got an addictive personality, so it's killer for me.
And
honestly.
People bang on about algorithms, excuse me. And I know it's a huge part of people's work now. And you do need it, but you've got to remember and understand that you need these boundaries so you can go back and you can be in a fresh place and you can have a fresh mindset. I used to be really, really guilty of overworking, and it leads to burnout. And the thing with burnout is you sometimes don't realise you're in it till it's too late, till you have that explosion or till you have that breakdown or till you have, like, your body will scream at you.
Yeah.
Your body will let you know, because your physical health and your mental health go hand in hand. And everybody's fine about talking about the physical health, but they often struggle with the mental health side of things. And your body will tell you when your mental health's dropping, when you're in burnout. I get cold sores. And I know when I don't particularly get ill too much, but when I'm run down, I'm starting to hit burnout, I'll start getting a cold sore for no reason.
Yeah.
Or, like, I was pretty lucky at work because a lot of the lads' things used to split, even through gloves. The mortar used to, like, attack the hands. I never got it. But if I'm getting run down, my fingers will start peeling on the sides. It's just little things like that. Your body, you're picking up colds or coughs, or you're waking up and you're feeling groggy, or you sound bunged up, or you might have an ongoing problem with your back. You might it might be fine for months, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's killing you. It's your body screaming at you to
That
tell
must
you.
be why I'm losing my hair.
But stress and things like that. But I have to be really, really, really strict with boundaries on social media. And sometimes if I do go in and I see it, I won't ever leave somebody on red and not get back to them. I'll give them a message like we spoke about before, or if they need further support, then I'll sort of signpost them in the right way. That I feel is the right support for them.
Well, you guys have obviously met so many people. What would you say is the most meaningful interaction that you've had with someone?
I think for me is people who, like I said before about they'll hold on a comment. That's something that I've said and I've not realised that it's had such an impact on that individual. And when people will message you saying, there was one individual that I got some support, and like I say, I don't know their journey. Once they go on that journey, or once they've left chatting to me, they'll go on their individual journey, whatever that looks like. But I've had one person send me a message saying, in absolute dire straits, how they're feeling suicidal and they feel like they've got absolutely no hope. And then I had that individual message me again saying, I've got my first round of therapy today. I'm really worried or apprehensive about it, but I know it's the right thing. And then they've messaged me 3 or 4 sessions later and saying, I can really start to feel the difference. And then they've gone on to message saying, it's my last session today. I feel amazing. Life's good. It's totally and utterly changed my outlook on life. Thank you so much for your help and how you've made such an impact on my life. And that's massive for me, that massive.
Yeah, that's pretty rewarding.
Yeah, hugely
100%.
rewarded. Like I said before, I can write a wicked CV for all the projects I've been part of. I can go around and bore you, pointing at all the buildings I've worked on, all up and down the country.
As we all do.
Yeah.
Up and
See
down.
that one? Did that one over there?
Up and down the country, and nothing gives me job satisfaction like this. It's the hardest job I've ever done, and it's the most emotionally draining. And I can get in that van and I can cry my eyes out sometimes, just because of the emotion that goes into it. But then at the same breath, I'm like, it's absolutely worth it, because every time you go out and do this stuff, you give a little piece of yourself away, but that piece is filling somebody else's hole that needs filling, and that's why I do it.
Wow. And
Oh, that's a tough one, really. Do you know what? I just kind of, I'm again, like I say, mine's probably a little bit more subtle because it's not what I fully promote as such on my page. But we organised a charity golf day earlier on this year, and we're going to do another one next year. And it wasn't the aim of it all. It was obviously all to do with mental health in construction. That's what we were raising the money for. But it was more kind of just, look, I think everybody needs a bit of a day out off the tools and, have a chit chat and a bit of a knees up for those that drink. And without knowing, I think people started to open up on the course, whether that was to me or whether that was to someone else in the full ball that they were with. And the conversations that I had sort of post the event were phenomenal. I was out with another 3 in my team, and a lad, I won't mention his name, but a lad had opened up to me about his struggles basically, and he was just like, I've spoken about it before, but it's really good to speak to someone who's like-minded and get this off my chest a bit more. So without knowing, I suppose, and then the girl who provides my uniform, I'll give her a shameless plug, branded by Sammy. She really struggles with social anxiety. So much so, she rang me on the way down to the event from home saying, I forgot my business cards. I'm going to have to go back and get them. Basically saying, I'm not going to make it. Oh. And I basically sent her a voice message and said, no, you're coming. You don't need your business cards. You're there. You're promoting yourself. We're wearing all of the gear that you've provided for the day. You don't need them. Just get your ass here, basically. Kicked her up the ass. And at the end of the day, much to her dismay, I think I did ask her beforehand. I didn't want to put her on the spot, but I said, do you mind me just sort of telling people about how you've overcome what you know, your biggest fear today? And she said it literally just changed her outcome on the whole scenario, really. She said she pushed herself out of a comfort zone, wouldn't have done so normally. Just little things like that, you know, like you're saying, where you wouldn't necessarily look for that reward, but it's so rewarding to feel like you're giving back to someone from when you've experienced that journey of being in a really dark, horrible place, whether that's anxiety, depression, or whatever it might be, to be able to give something back, I think is the biggest reward for anyone. Take the followers and the platform and everything else out of it. That it fills me with joy, mate, as I'm sure it does with you.
Yeah, massively, yeah.
I mean, I suppose it's no matter like how big or small it is, it just goes a long way for that individual. Yeah,
I think, you know, when you're in that mindset, I think to find someone who's relatable and understands what you're going through, I think that makes a big difference then to be able to sort of open up. And I think this is where what you're doing is absolutely incredible. You know, like you touched on earlier, they don't want to see a guy who knows loads about mental health but has never been in construction, or on the other hand, knows loads about construction but not much about mental health. I think when you can come sort of like with the whole package of, lads, I've been here, I've laid bricks, I've been on site, I know the crack, I know it's not okay to be okay, and all that kind of jazz, the cliches that go with it. When you've walked the walk, then you can talk the talk. I think that's huge. Like if someone was to approach me in that manner, I'm more likely to listen to them than I am someone like you said earlier, wearing a tweed suit going, no, this is what we do if you're struggling and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's just so different, and you need to be relatable, especially in construction. You know, we're all lads.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
You know,
There's been times where I stopped one talk because they're like, you're not a bricklayer. I went, right. I went out and laid 200 bricks.
Did you?
I went out and laid 200 bricks with them on a garage. I went, right, who's getting paid for this, me or you? Come on, boys.
Were they on the level?
I'll have this money.
Were they level?
No, were they? Looked like they've been played with a catapult.
Did they redo them?
Brilliant. No, and I think that's massively part, especially in this game. Do you know what I mean? It might be like in a big corporate event, like everyone's going to walk in there in a suit and tie. It's different, isn't it? But in this game, you know, you want to know someone's been on site and faced the struggles that you've faced. I think that's huge. Hats off to you, mate, for being able to do it. Really is.
So what's been like the biggest challenges, like the biggest challenge in both of your careers so far with mental health?
I think for me, it's changing the people's opinion of it and people's understanding of what it is and how it's very individual for everybody and it doesn't look the same. And you might go and do a course and you read the scientific version of it, but that might not be the same version for them out on site. So it's difficult breaking that barrier down sometimes with people that they're like, no, I'm not interested. I don't get that. I don't have any of that. I'm all right. I can keep going. But then when they do come and listen, they're like, maybe I do have this. And maybe I do need to, I never realised I was like that. And sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. So I think people's opinion around the subject is very, very, very difficult to break down at times.
I think the biggest challenge for me from an outsider looking, I don't do a lot of site work. I do more sort of domestic than I do commercial, but the few sites that I've been to is the awareness on site of mental health, or poor mental health, should I say. You see so many signs. I mean, it's interesting you saying about a poster earlier. I've never been, like I said, I don't do a lot of site work. I've never been on site and seen anything about mental health. Like, you know, I know they see there's signs that say no accidents on site and all that kind of stuff. And I've been in and filled like paperwork, like literally a logbook like that, working with gypsum, working from heights, working with this, working with that. Not one question on there anywhere, how's your mental health, or have you suffered with anxiety in the last so many months? Have you suffered with depression? For me, that's the biggest challenge that I would really like to see grow in construction is let's just get a bit of awareness out there of this is real. Do you know what I mean? Like this, I mean, I forget the stats. You probably know a lot better than me. But how many people commit suicide in construction, and how, you know, potentially, I'm not saying it can be solved because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, right? But I think if there was more awareness on building sites signposting, not necessarily from people like you, but not even inconspicuous, a sign that sort of says, and when you're signing those bits of paperwork, no one looks over your shoulder when you're signing this paperwork. 9 times out of 10, let's be honest, we flick through it and sign it and give it a quick squiggle. I think if there was something in there that maybe just give you a little kick up the bum to make you think about it, that would be my biggest challenge and struggle for the construction industry, would be where I would want to make changes if I could.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people's attitudes are definitely changing. Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like when I first started thinking about this work and doing this work, people's attitudes were totally different to what they are now. And I think companies are starting to realise this and understand that we might not be causing these issues, and it might be something that's outside work, but we're certainly not helping it. And you can put it back to like when I first started on site. You'd go out on site, people would be smoking on site, you go in the canteens, it'd be horrible, there'd be page-free stuff everywhere, and people's attitudes were totally different. Whereas the industry are like, right, we need to change a little bit with this, and we need to bring us up to speed a bit and be a bit more professional. And now you look around, and certainly like the work that I used to do, the canteens are up to spec, and you have decent food on there now, and it's not just bacon, egg and sausage that you can eat. You can get healthy meals along the way, and people are looking after themselves a lot more. And I feel we're at that point now with the mental health and well-being within the industry, that the industry's on that tilting point that we're realising, right, we need to make these changes, and we do need to have the impact, because do we get the physical health right, or we get it right to a big degree? And I know people can have an opinion about health and safety, but it ultimately there to get them home safe to the families. And the last lot of figures we can relate the two to is from the Office of National Statistics from 2021. And they were saying that the biggest killer within our industry was falls from heights. And that year we lost 17 people. That's the biggest killer, which is devastating. 17 families were devastated. In that same year, there was 507 construction workers that took their own life. So when you break that down, it's 2 every working day. So Monday to Friday, we're losing 10 people. And it's huge numbers. And it's very, very, very difficult to bring these figures together, because it may be happening on site, it may not be happening on site. And a lot of people tend to hide suicide in different ways. And it's not the mental ill health that is killing all these people in this industry. It's the stigma that surrounds this subject.
100%.
Yeah.
Stigma affected me differently. Stigma stopped me reaching out and asking for help. I never got suicidal, never entered my head. And again, I think I'm too stubborn. But it doesn't mean my problems are any less than somebody who is having intrusive thoughts. And it doesn't mean their problems are any more than mine just because I wasn't having those intrusive thoughts.
We're all people differently, doesn't it? Like
we're all individuals. We all have individual wants and needs. The important thing is to reach out and ask for that help and support.
Well, what's one myth that you want people to stop believing about mental health?
If you feel somebody is suicidal, you can't talk to them about it. You're going to put that idea of suicide in their head.
Really?
Yeah, and it's totally not true. People are scared, and I get it. People are scared that if I ask them this, they're going to send them over the edge and they're going to do what they're going to do. If they're going to do it, that idea was already there. You're not going to put that idea there. So I think the important thing is to people, and I've done this several times, I'm like, are you feeling suicidal? Are you having intrusive thoughts?
That's a big question.
It's a huge question, yeah, but it's a powerful question at the same time. Yeah.
And you've also got to remember, you don't have to have the answers for them. You don't have to give them that answer. And I think people that I speak to that have been suicidal, they've said that if somebody had asked me, I probably would have honestly said yes to it. And they would have been just as scared because they understand the consequences of their actions. But at the same time, they thought they were alone and nobody was hearing them. So I think the biggest myth, I think, for me is definitely people need to start asking that hard question. And it's not going to be easy, and you're going to be shaking as you answer it because you're scared of what's going to come back at you. But remember, there's people out there that can help and support not only you, but that individual through that time as well.
It's going to be scary for that person to ask the question
massively
as well, especially if it's someone so close, because they might not want to know the answer.
But for me, I think the way I think about it is that I'd rather have a difficult conversation and ask that difficult question than ultimately lose that individual.
Definitely. For me, I guess it's just, it's a bit cliche, but just to make people understand that I think the myth is that it's better to bottle it up than it is to talk about it. I think, you know, we've all experienced times, haven't we, where we've not wanted to talk about something that's a challenge, whether that's in a relationship or a job. You know, it could be something as simple as a pay rise. You know, I feel like I'm working harder and stuff. But just to approach that differently, I think, is that it is a complete myth that if you don't talk, it's going to get better. Yeah. Complete myth. You know, you've obviously said as soon as you opened up, your life changed dramatically. Exactly the same for me. I was in massive just denial that anything was wrong with me, and, you know, that I was an addict and that I had issues and stuff. And as soon as I actually confronted it head on and said, you know what, I think I've got a problem here, and started talking about it, it made it so much easier.
I think you even mentioned one earlier about like mental health isn't a weakness.
No, definitely not.
It's a sign of strength that you can stand and talk about.
Yeah. So what's one piece of advice that you'd give someone that is hesitant to seek help?
I'd just say it makes it better. It really does. And again, I know I keep going on about these cliches. It's from personal experience, as I've just said. I think when you open up, the big thing for me was when I opened up was that I started getting answers maybe I didn't want to hear, but actually made me understand where I was at that time. And I think when you start opening up and people start asking you questions, I'm sure you ask people questions that aren't necessarily what they think is wrong with them. I've done therapy, I've done lots of different types of therapy, some of which have helped and some of which haven't. But when they start asking you questions, and for me, my big thing was past trauma of my dad not being around when I was growing up very often. And I was like, that's got nothing to do with me being an alcoholic. But it had, because that was my coping mechanism to deal with the situation that I hadn't dealt with. And I think then I was just passing the buck, or, you know, the relay baton just to another issue. I think, you know, from that perspective, I think just talking about it makes a huge difference, because I think you start to understand things that you potentially wouldn't understand when you don't start answering questions.
You don't always realise it.
No.
I think for me, it's to let people know that it does get better. I promise you it gets better, no matter how deep or how dark the problem is, that no matter what you've done to get to that point, and you might think, I can never get myself out of this, or I've done X, Y, and Z, and I've destroyed all these relationships, and I've done this and I've done that. I promise you it does get better, and you can work those solutions out. You may lose friends over it and family members and that side of it, but you can get yourself out of those problems. You don't have to do it on your own. You're not the only one going through it, and your story is important.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for sharing both of your stories today. No, I kind of want to finish the podcast on a bit of a lighter note. So can you tell us a joke?
You got one?
Yeah, I got one. Yeah.
Go on, go for it. You go first.
It's a clean joke as well.
Okay.
Mine's cleanish.
So a guy goes for a job interview. Job interview goes well. And the interviewer says to him, right, I'm really pleased with that interview. I think I'm going to offer you the job, but you've got to put fascinate into a sentence. So the guy sat there thinking about it for a minute. Fascinate. He goes, I know. He goes, I've got a donkey jacket. I think it's great. It's got 9 buttons, but I can only fascinate.
Oh, brilliant. I love it, mate. I love that one. That's good.
That is a good one.
You need to say that one so I can remember it, because I will not remember that.
You have to keep watching the podcast.
That's it, mate. Yeah, 100%. Mine would be, what bees deliver milk? Boobies. My 7-year-old came out with that one at the dinner table the other night, and I was absolutely flabbergasted.
Do you want to get that one written down as well? Yeah.
I reckon I can remember
that. I hope so.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, guys, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Say thank you for having us.